there, and welcome back to Reading Rule, y'all. I'm Dr. Shay Parton, and in this week's episode, I'll be talking about how rurality and place feature and function in Peter Brown Hoffmeister's Too Shattered for Mending. I think in my own personal reading life, I used to skip author's notes a lot. Why, I don't know. But after reading the notes from the last few books I've read and talked about for this series, I know it's definitely something I'm not going to be doing anymore. Something I definitely need to remedy. And if you don't read them either, I recommend that you start. In Hoffmeister's author's note, he talks a lot about how he came to choose the place of this novel. I really appreciated having a deeper understanding of what brought him to pick this place and why it was so meaningful to him as a writer. So I'm going to read it to you. He says, "The location is real. Pierce, Idaho, just west of the Bitterroot Mountains, is an incredible location for a book. Stunning natural beauty, nationally renowned trout and steelhead runs, a landscape that includes moose, bear, elk, wolves, bobcats, and cougars. There are very few places left in the United States as wild and rugged as the foothills and mountains of north central Idaho. The people of Pierce are engaging as well. So it's not just about the place, but it's also about the people, because the people help give the place its identity, just like the place gives the people some parts of their identity. Independent, yet mutually supportive, proud, and capable, these are not people wasting their lives staring at a cell phone screen or worrying about the latest celebrity gossip. It's strange being in a town where people are generally capable of wiring their own homes, acquiring their own meat, storing up wood for a long winter, and fixing their own cars or trucks, but that's Pierce. Unfortunately, the poverty, both financial and cultural, is stunning as well. The racism and the lack of higher education, there's little legal oversight, almost zero police or sheriff presence in the town. Many times in Pierce, I've seen a 12 or 13-year-old ride an ATV on the Idaho 11 through the middle of town with a shotgun or a rifle on his front rack. Some residents are fiercely loyal to this former gold mining and logging town of 508 people, while others, some teenagers, can't wait to leave. I wanted to write about young people in Pierce because that conflict between the lure of home and the desire to go out into the wider world is both powerful and universal. Teenagers everywhere consider leaving their hometowns, yet most don't." That's an interesting statement, and I can't wait to talk to him about it because I generally think the opposite. That teenagers want to get out, and they do. At least, maybe because that's my experience. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm excited to interview him for an author talk and talk more about that statement. The first time, this is Hoffmeister again writing, "The first time I stayed in Pierce, I was talking to a teenage checker at Sam's Grocery, and I said to her, 'We're on vacation here.' She stopped and looked at me like I must have been recently released from a state mental hospital. She said, 'Why would anyone come here for vacation?' I just smiled and shook my head because how could I respond to such a perfect quote? Just like in all the other books I've talked about over the course of this series, place is so much more than the setting of the novel. It's people's identities, their assumptions, and in the case of this book, it's as wild as the characters' lives. I've said before about other books that place is like a character in the book, but I've been rethinking that more and more, about how that anthropomorphized reading of place really shortchanges and underestimates it. In this book especially, the ecological relationships that exist in and among characters, both human, animal, and plant alike, really drive the story. Much in the same way we'd realize the ecology around us drives our survival as a species in our story if we'd stop our navel-gazing long enough to think about it anyway. So Hoffmeister's consideration of place throughout the novel is both deep and wide. He considers how place influences the way people feel about and interact with one another. For example, he writes, this is little thinking, "The English teacher doesn't like kids like me. He went to some fancy college in California, and I overheard him say once to another teacher that trailer trash are the hardest to teach." So thinking about how place influences the way that people think about other people in other places. He also thinks about how rurality is connected to staying and leaving. So Little's in art class, and his drawing partner, Zaylee, frequently talks about getting out of town, even pulling up playlists to listen to during class that make them feel like they're going to get out of this town someday. But through Little, he offers a different perspective than the dominant narrative of dying to get out of the one-horse town. After seeing a Shiraz moose on a drive to clear his head, Little thinks about the costs and benefits of leaving versus staying. He thinks, sometimes I think about how we're all spread out along here in these dead North Idaho towns, old U.S. Forest Service and potlatch logging sites, and everyone young hoping to leave as soon as possible because there's a world out there that's supposed to be better than this. A world that's moved into the 21st century, a world with cell phone coverage and internet and better cars, a world with colleges and fancy restaurants and jobs people go to every day, wearing silk ties and expensive suits. But I don't know if I ever want to leave. I like this land, where there are more deer than people, where the moose walk the highway, where trees are taking back the gold cuts. And then, a little later on, in a conversation he has with Zaylee, she talks about how California's got to be better than Idaho, right? To which Little replies, I don't know. Seems like there's shittiness everywhere. I'm not saying everything's got to be bad in California. Some of it might be good, too. There's probably both, like everywhere. And then he also thinks about how humans are still part of the ecology in his use of place in the text. The entire story is punctuated by the decimation of Little's flock of chickens by a bobcat. As he recounts important moments in his past and narrates his present, Little keeps track of his dwindling food supply. The mismanagement of the family's funds by Little's aunt and uncle lead him to need to rely on the natural world for food in a way that seems impossible or at the very least uncommon today. He fishes and hunts to keep food on the table, and he's good at it. He knows where to go, where to sit or stand, how to feel, dress, and cure, and he knows the rules about which animals it's okay to take and which it's not. He understands the suffering that comes with imbalances in nature and the responsibility of not letting a creature suffer, which has really interesting connections to the humans in the story. I'm so taken with the various layers of the role that place in rurality and wilderness that exist in this book. It'd take more than another reading or two to see them all. That said, I hope you'll pick it up, share it with students, and do some thinking together with them around how their place is connected to who they are and what they know about living and being in the world. And that's it for this video. I hope you'll stay tuned and join me next week as I discuss my reactions to the text as a rural reader. Until then, y'all come back now, would you?